One day, several workers were forced to break into building number 1 on Oswaldgasse in Vienna, a block located about 30 minutes from the center of the capital. Back in 2011, one of the tenants of the building was carrying out repairs in the basement due to a broken water pipe. However, the basement was locked, and in order to replace the damaged pipe, the workers had to force the door open. The first thing the workers noticed was a terrible smell coming from the basement. After they broke the padlock, they saw several abandoned ice cream containers. As they came closer, they were astonished by what they found inside. The discovery left them frozen in horror. Terrified, they immediately left the house and reported the matter to the landlord. From one of the containers, a foot was sticking out, which is why the police were called. When the police arrived and searched the basement, everyone present panicked. The containers, filled with cement, contained human body parts. Later it turned out that the perpetrator was a woman, Estibaliz Carranza, an ice cream maker from a nearby cafe. Estibaliz Carranza was born in September 1978 in the Mexican city of Guadalajara, the daughter of Armando Carranza, a Mexican psychologist, journalist, and author of books on esoteric subjects, and of the Spaniard Angela Zamora. In 1983, when Estibaliz was 5 years old, she left Mexico with her parents and her younger brother. The family settled in Barcelona, Spain. Estibaliz's childhood proceeded normally, although her father was known for being excessively strict and intolerant. His anger was the cause of the girl's fantasies, in which she imagined how to rid herself of him. Nonetheless, Armando Carranza ensured his daughter attended prestigious schools and received her education at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Estibaliz grew up sociable and had many friends, even though she occasionally experienced mood swings. She also often had fits of rage and would become truly violent. As an adult, living independently, Estibaliz moved to Germany, where she spent some time in Munich, working for an acquaintance, and then found a job in an ice cream parlor in the nearby city of Nuremberg. She had no problems with the language, as she spoke German very well, and she was attractive and got along well with the locals. While working in an ice cream parlor in Nuremberg, Estibaliz met her first husband, server Fils. He sold refrigerators and was a member of the Hare Krishna religious community. Server was 14 years older than Estibaliz, and just a few weeks after they met, he proposed to her because he had fallen madly in love. They soon married and settled in Berlin. Estibaliz found work in various places, but she was not happy with her life. Shortly after the wedding, the couple began having conflicts. It later became known that Fils took his wife's hard-earned money, insulted her, and beat her. Despite everything, family life went on, and in 2000, the couple moved to Austria, to Vienna, where both quickly adapted to the local way of life. In Vienna, Estibaliz had the opportunity for the first time to open her own business, her ice cream cafe called Schleckery, located in a busy spot on Oswaldgasse in house number 1. It quickly became a popular destination for residents. Next door was Iman's barbershop, and at the end of the building's lobby, a staircase led up to apartments on 3 floors. Under the staircase was the entrance to the basement. Phil supported Estibaliz financially but required that she repay him all costs within the first year. After the cafe opened, its owner set to work and made it prosper, while at the same time her husband developed a passion for firearms technology and shooting games. This passion contributed to family discord, as did Phil's desire for his wife to join his Krishna religion. Although that idea was foreign to her, Estibaliz eventually agreed to adopt that belief. Running the business allowed Estibaliz to meet many people, including a number of men. Over the years, she had several lovers. Some were relatives of her customers, others were suppliers, tourists, or simply neighbors. One of them was Manfred Hinterberger, 48, a representative of a company that manufactured industrial equipment such as freezers, refrigerators, and ice cream machines. After a few years of acquaintance, Estibaliz and Manfred began a love affair. In 2008, Estibaliz asked her husband for a divorce, and he agreed on condition that she pay him the money she owed him. Because Estibaliz did not want to repay her husband, they continued to share a small apartment. On April 27, 2008, after finishing work in the cafe, she went upstairs to their apartment. A few hours later, she and her husband got into an argument in which Phils did not spare her insults. He claimed Estibaliz had been unfaithful to him all her life, and in a fit of rage he declared he would put an end to it. While Phils was sitting at the computer with his back to her, Estibaliz grabbed a weapon belonging to her husband, pointed it at his head, and fired 3 shots. After making sure it was over, she dragged the dead man into the bathroom and left him there. She was certain the neighbors would have heard the shots, meaning the police would arrive at any moment, but nothing happened. After waiting until nightfall, she laid the corpse on the sofa in the living room and went to bed. 2 days later, she tried to dispose of the body. First, she wanted to burn it, but the smoke from the apartment windows would have revealed her actions. One neighbor indeed called the fire department. When they tried to enter the apartment, Estibaliz stopped them, saying everything was fine, that her dinner had just burned. A few more days went by. Estibaliz considered buying an electric saw, though she didn't know how to use such a device. But the store helped her figure it out. Once she was home, she dismembered the body, placing all the parts, including the head, into bags and putting them in a freezer. Later, she placed the remains in empty ice cream containers and filled them with cement. She then brought the containers to her cafe and stored them in a freezer in the basement, where they were eventually found. Her main motive for the crime was that Phils refused to move out of the apartment and refused to give her a divorce. Furthermore, she had financial debts to him that she did not want to repay. Time passed, and Estibaliz went on living a normal life. No one took an interest in her husband's disappearance. The couple had not lived in Austria long enough to form friendships with anyone who might inquire about Server's well-being. If someone passing by asked about him, Estibaliz would say he had gone to India to join a group of Krishna devotees to meditate with them. Her regular customers noticed no change in the ice cream maker's mood, and no one was suspicious. Meanwhile, Estibaliz's romance with Manfred Hinterberger grew more intense, and they eventually began living together. She asked her lover for money to invest in her business, and Manfred gave her 100,000 euros and granted her access to his accounts. He also wanted his beloved to spend more time with him and to look stunning. For that purpose, he forced her to undergo cosmetic surgery, which she disapproved of. Estibaliz herself dreamed of becoming a mother, but Manfred already had children, so her dream did not come true. The couple's problems worsened when Estibaliz learned that her lover was cheating on her, not just with one woman but with several. At that point, she decided to kill him too, but this time she wanted to avoid the mistakes she had made during the previous incident and acquire the skills she needed so she wouldn't be unprepared again. She took some courses, and thanks to these lessons, she eventually felt ready to act. Beforehand, she covered the floor and walls of her apartment with plastic wrap to simplify cleaning up any blood. On the night of November 21, 2010, after returning from a trip together, Manfred and Estibaliz were intimate. Afterwards, Estibaliz accused Manfred of being unfaithful, but he denied it and fell asleep. She did not hesitate for long. She grabbed a pistol and shot her lover while he peacefully slept in bed, firing 4 bullets into his neck. Then she did the same thing as before. She let the body lie there for 24 hours, then put it in the bathtub, took the same electric saw, and dismembered it. This time, she proceeded more thoughtfully and carefully. Next, she used empty ice cream containers again. Since she had no cement left, she decided to store the pieces in one of the freezers in the basement, but they could not hold the entire body, so she had to leave most parts in the apartment, covering them with cat litter. That helped mask the smell of decomposition. Eventually, she brought everything down to the basement and went about her daily business. Before long, Manfred's family asked Estibaliz about him, and she tearfully told them that her lover had left her and emigrated to Hawaii. The relatives believed her and stopped asking questions. Soon after this incident, Estibaliz met an Austrian man named Ronald, with whom she started a relationship and became pregnant. Things seemed to be going better than ever, because she had already managed to get away with murder twice without being caught. Who could have guessed what this charismatic and friendly woman, described by everyone as a nice person with a good heart, was capable of? Then came the day when workers renovating the building next to the ice cream parlor and the barbershop broke into Estibaliz's basement to access the sewage system and locate the damaged pipe. The building's common drain was in the storage rooms, small individual cellars normally used to store useful or useless items and serving as bunkers in wartime. When the workers entered, they smelled decay mixed with cat litter, and out of curiosity, they went searching for the source. The stench came from 2 large freezers that looked like they had been abandoned for some time. When the workers opened them, they found containers filled with cement. In one, there was an arm and a leg visible, in the other, a head. They also found 2 reflectors with rifle scopes, a woman's handbag containing a Beretta pistol, and a notebook with Spanish notes. Horrified, the workers immediately left the building and informed the barber about the discovery in the basement, and he called the police. When the police arrived, they searched the basement and found the remains of 2 dismembered corpses. One had been completely dismembered, while the other had only a severed head. All of it was placed in containers and filled with cement. The remains were handed over to the Vienna police for forensic examination. In the initial investigations, it was not possible to determine who the basement compartment belonged to, as it had not been used for some time. Since nothing else suspicious was found, the investigators began examining the available evidence. The day after the police arrived, Estibaliz showed up for work as usual. That morning, she learned from a neighbor about the discovery in the building's basement and was told that the police were already investigating. She became very nervous, immediately went home, closed the cafe, and put up a "temporarily closed" sign. When she left the ice cream parlor, she was trembling and her face was full of anxiety, which seemed strange to others because she normally looked completely different. Naturally, the anxious look on the ice cream maker's face alone was not enough to attract the attention of neighboring residents. Estibaliz crossed the street at the pedestrian crossing and headed for the bus stop. Witnesses saw her take out her phone, call someone, and then leave in a taxi. After she got out, she went to the bank and withdrew all her money, then purchased a plane ticket to Paris. However, she was unable to use this ticket. Austrian police officers were already waiting for her at the airport. Although they had information about the ticket she bought, they never saw her there. When it became clear that she did not show up for check-in on Monday or Tuesday, the police did not yet issue an arrest warrant for Estibaliz Carranza. It was only on Wednesday, June 8, that a search and arrest warrant was finally issued for the ice cream maker. By then, investigators were convinced the containers in the basement belonged to the cafe, but it was not easy to locate the owner because she no longer used her cell phone. Meanwhile, Estibaliz, who stayed in Vienna, took another taxi and asked the driver to take her to northern Italy. She arrived in the town of Tarvisio, from where she traveled another 6 kilometers to Thoromagler, where she decided to stay at a hotel for a few days. She asked the taxi driver if he would be kind enough to book a room for her, as she was unable to do it herself. Later, when the taxi driver saw the suspect's photo in the media, he notified the police that he had taken her to Tarvisio, but by then it was too late. In this town, Estibaliz spent one night and then took a train the next day to the city of Udine, 50 kilometers from Tarvisio. There, she met Ivan Rio, a street artist who offered to help when he saw her sitting at a cafe table in tears. When he spoke to her and asked if she needed help, Estibaliz told him about her problems with her partner, whose cruelty had forced her to run away from home. Ivan invited Estibaliz to stay at his place for a few days while she figured out how to continue her escape. She agreed. He offered her the sofa, while he slept in his own bed. During those days, Estibaliz helped her kind host with cleaning, shopping, and cooking. Everything went well until Ivan discovered, through a newspaper article, who his guest really was. Shocked and frightened, he demanded that she leave his home as soon as possible and admitted he now knew she was on the run from the law. Estibaliz immediately denied the accusations. Ivan left the house and went straight to the nearest police station, informing the officers that a woman who was wanted by the authorities was staying in his home. With little hope of finding the suspect there, the police went to the address. To their surprise, the accused was already waiting for them. She offered no resistance and was arrested as the main suspect in the murders. Estibaliz Carranza was apprehended on June 10, 2011, at 7:30 a.m. in Udine, Italy. After her arrest, she was taken to the police station for questioning, where she confessed to committing 2 murders, one in 2008 and the other in 2010. In both cases, she used the same methods, though she said she was more skilled the second time. Meanwhile, Austrian authorities immediately requested the suspect's extradition. While Estibaliz was in Italy, forensic experts identified the second body as that of Manfred Hinterberger. In her interrogation, Estibaliz tried to justify her actions by claiming she had been abused and mistreated by both men, that each had brought out the worst in her, and that family problems had provoked her outbursts of anger. As a result, she portrayed the murders as being caused by physical and psychological abuse she had suffered. She also admitted that in both cases she shot her victims in the head and then dismembered the bodies with an electric saw. Estibaliz told investigators that after her first crime, she had tried to improve her technique, taking shooting lessons and a cement course to prepare for the second murder. At the time of her arrest in Italy, Estibaliz Carranza was pregnant with Ronald's child. When authorities brought her to the hospital for a medical examination, it was discovered she was already in her second month. 14 days after her arrest, On June 24, Estibaliz was finally handed over to the Austrian judicial authorities and placed in detention on suspicion of 2 counts of murder. Her lawyer stated that the police statement made under Italian law was considered valid evidence, but that Austrian law differed significantly. He demanded that this statement not be recognized as evidence in the case. He also announced he would file a lawsuit against several Austrian tabloids for allegedly violating the presumption of innocence of his client. Estibaliz Carranza was held in a prison in Vienna until January 11, 2012, when she had to be taken to the Kaiser Franz Joseph Hospital to give birth. As soon as she gave birth to a son, he was immediately handed over to his father. 2 months later, the child's parents were married in a prison facility. From the first day of the trial, the accused pleaded guilty. Prosecutors and psychiatrists portrayed her as a ruthless, manipulative, and selfish woman. Although educated and cultured, and fluent in 3 languages, she seemed capable of aberrant behavior to pursue her own interests. The defense team tried to present her as a victim of her own passions. They also claimed she was under the influence of illegal substances and legal medication prescribed by her psychiatrist, stating she took 5 different medications 3 times a day, including antidepressants and some drugs to help combat schizophrenia. However, the facts prove that Estibaliz acted intentionally. After firing 1 shot, she did not stop but fired 2 more rounds to ensure the victim was dead. The accused herself testified in court that Manfred had forced her to undergo countless cosmetic surgeries, from nose jobs to Botox and silicone injections in her lips. He also constantly made her exercise to maintain her figure, even though she worked 12-hour shifts in her ice cream parlor. According to Estibaliz, she could no longer bear all this and decided to kill Manfred. A psychiatrist explained that her client simply did not know how to break up with men who made her unhappy. She chose a drastic path, believing the easiest solution was to kill them when they were no longer needed. Once the men started causing her problems, the best way to get rid of them, in her view, was murder. On Thursday, November 22, 2012, Estibaliz Carranza was found guilty of murdering her husband in 2008 and her lover in 2010, and was sentenced to life imprisonment in an institution for mentally ill offenders. Together with her lawyers, she appealed against the verdict, but on March 20, 2013, the Vienna Regional Court upheld the ruling. In November 2014, Estibaliz published her first book, which she co-wrote with journalist Martina Prewine. The book, titled My 2 Lives, tells the true story of the Ice Lady, describing her life from her childhood in Mexico to her life in prison. It sold more than 100,000 copies in 1 year. In November 2017, it became known that Estibaliz would be transferred from the women's prison in Lower Austria to the Justizanstalt Asten in the town of the same name in Upper Austria. In August 2018, she and her husband Ronald divorced after 6.5 years of marriage. In September 2018, a new book about Estibaliz's life was released. According to a psychiatric report, Estibaliz was classified as a dangerous, cold, and manipulative offender who acted out of selfishness and financial interests, posing a risk to those around her. She was diagnosed with a severe personality disorder, was psychologically unstable, and behaved like a princess waiting to be saved by a prince. That is, she lived in a fantasy world where she was the center of everyone's attention. At the time of the crime, she was fully accountable for her actions, as she was neither under the influence of illegal substances nor unaware of what she was doing. Psychiatrists feared that once she was released, she might reoffend. During a psychiatric examination, Estibaliz said, "A part of my brain is red, and when it switches on, I can't help myself anymore." Most recently, she claimed she killed her victims after they had turned her into a beast. Thank you for watching and take care of yourselves.